Regional Championship Houston was a massive success this week, with Modern players everywhere rejoicing at the health of their format. Standard players, on the other hand, look towards Spotlight Baltimore with much less enthusiasm. I've spent a good amount of time looking at Modern this week, so let's turn over to Rick this. What's the weather looking like in Standard land?
Well, Athena, forecast this week is cauldrony with a chance of aggro. Make sure you pack early removal in case a lizard or shark attacks, but don't forget to abrade the cauldron before eating. With Baltimore in sight, it's time to learn. Good morning, Rebels. Today we break down 7 major tournament results as we lock in on Spotlight Baltimore, or as I like to call it, Vivi's last ride. Coming in with 30% of the meta and a single trophy, King Cauldron tops the charts once more, but can it stay on top in an increasingly hateful and inbred metagame?
Mono Red continues to stick the second place landing with a 25% meta share and a single trophy of its own. The question remains though, can this archetype fight off the challengers circling it while retaining points against Cauldron?
New to third place and coming in hot is Simic Counters, bumping up to 9% of the meta and 2 trophies over this past week, booting Dimir off its lengthy Tier 1 run. Will Simic be the go-to in a world that shoves increasingly higher slots into Fire Magic and Pyroclasm? Stay tuned.
Kicking off our challenger tier is Azorius Aggro with 7% of the meta and 2 trophies. Vivi and Red Beware this little number realized that Seamrip is best removal in Standard at 1 mana and designed an entire aggro archetype around it.
Jeskai Control is up next with a 7% meta share and a single trophy this week as players sleeved up Shiko once more in hopes of taking down Red and Cauldron. With Dimir falling hard, this little number is a dark horse going into Baltimore.
Rounding out our challenger tier is Dimir, down but not dead, with 7% of the meta for his second consecutive week, though once again no trophies. Can this deck script be flipped with some tuning before the weekend? Time's running out on Curious Kaido before it needs a boost.
Over in Brewer's Corner, I'll highlight Boros Mobilize, an RCQ winning rogue brew from the Philippines.
Showing off Naya Yuna. Now let's swing into our archetype breakdown, starting once more with King Cauldron. Ram made it to the finals of Sunday's 209-player MTGO RC Super Qualifier with Vivi Cauldron before falling to Jeskai Control. Rectus, is this how you would build the deck for Vivi's final ride in Baltimore?
This is arguably the most balanced build of the deck that you'll see. We're not hedging where in particular with this build, choosing instead to max out on our combo potential and just do what this deck does best. Get VVs onto Cauldrons and go nuts. Detect Intrusion off the sideboard is spicy, and we're here for a card that not only counters board wipes, but also key triggered abilities. That's me staring at Kavaro in Reanimator, aka Superior Spider-Man. Cut Propulsion does take out opposing Riddler's, Hellkites, and Shiko's admirably as well, so it gets an honorable mention. But I don't know, I look at this and it keeps going over and over again. Like, do you want to play more torches? Do you want to hedge harder for red? Do you want to hedge harder for Jeskai Control? Like, this deck is getting attacked on so many different angles and axes because of how dominant it's been, that playing a balanced build is a little interesting at the moment.
Yeah, we're seeing kind of the same pattern over and over, right? One week it's trying something innovative, and then the next week it's back to stock list, and it's kind of been going back and forth for a bit like that. So which version do you think we'll see the most of at Baltimore?
It's an open tournament. It's a GP, so to speak, right? So I expect to see more of a balanced build. I think when you get into Pro Tour situations, World Championships, smaller contained meta with all like nothing but grinders, you're going to see more tuned lists. But when you get into larger open tournaments with people that are just in the area and want to play, they're not necessarily going to try and play all those highly tuned slots that are very specific. They're just going to go for the most powerful generic build. And some of the higher grinders might be shaving a card or tuning a card here or there, but I do expect to see a lot of people on balanced builds for Vivi's last ride, simply because it's an open format. It's not just pros going to this, it's a lot of people just picking up the deck and wanting to run it.
Yeah, I can see that. So for those going to Spotlight Baltimore, comment down below what deck you plan on bringing to bring down the Cauldron-filled meta. For now, we'll move over to the most popular choice of counter pick, Mono Red Aggro.
Yo lad, smashed through 37-player MTGO Challenge last Saturday with red deck wins, beating the mirror match in the finals to clinch the trophy. Athena, what does this build of red have that gives it an edge in the mirror?
So this list is nice and clean. It's much like last week. It's not a whole lot has changed, but we're running the single copy of Stingerback Terror in the main. Great card against the red-based removal of the format with its potentially really high toughness, right? This card is something we've kind of seen in sideboards, so running the one main board one is a pretty good hedge. I also want to point out in the sideboard Thunder Magic. Thunder Magic is actually really good right now, right? It's pretty interesting because it's a 1 mana 2 damage removal spell. It's also a 4 mana 4 damage removal spell, right? So it's good at killing all sorts of creatures across the curve. But the real sideboard hedge this week is Fire Magic. 3 Fire Magics in this sideboard is signifying the rise of Simic Counters. So this card looks really good again.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be done with Fire Magic so badly, because that tension point with Burnout Bastronaut is just brutal, but it keeps on giving points against counters, and that's where we're at. So the big question to me is actually not about Fire Magic in the board, it's about Nova Hellkite in the main. Do you want 4 copies of this card right now?
Yeah, this card's a bit risky, I'll be honest. It's decent into Cauldron, it's fine, and it's fine in the red mirror, it's nothing crazy. The big advantage of this card was being able to handle things like Dimir really well, where the haste really mattered against some of the more sorcery speed removal, and it could like come in, kill something with low toughness, and destroy a Kaido. But now in Dimir's place, if you look at our tier list, we have something different, and Nova Hellkite looks very, very bad into Simic counters between Offspring Paw Patch recruits and Serac, because the ping is forced. You don't have an optional trigger there. You have to target something with it. So it just looks worse and worse against some of these other decks. So as we see more Dimir, I imagine we'll start seeing less Hellkite.
Yeah, I look at Hellkite, and I feel like a lot of people have looked at opposing creatures and thought, yeah, there's enough X1s that Hellkite's going to just be relevant from turn 3 on, and that's not necessarily true. Like, Simic Counters scales quickly. Turn 3, they might have Ouroboros already out, right? And you also have the fact that, like you said, Paw Patch Recruit, moving counters around, it's a little rough when your thing just warps in for 4 damage and there's scales to 4 damage because of that. And it feels as awkward as that scenario we had in testing where we played Nova Hellkite into a Screaming Nemesis and it force pings the opponent's Nemesis and you're like, brutal. But I don't know, Athena. In Magic, we often say the phrase, bolt the bird. But against this next deck, good luck having enough removal to hit all of them before they scale. Let's talk about our mid-season standout, Simic Counters.
Komatamen, I hope I'm saying that right, won a 42-player MTGO Challenge last Friday with Simic Counters, clinching this archetype's rise to Tier 1. Victus, why is this list taking the place of Dimir?
I mean, this is a speed demon format with high levels of early interaction, and look at how many 1-drops we have in this list. We have 17 1-drops, right? 16 of them are turn 1 threats, 8 of them are mana dorks, 4 of them are protection. Like, this is such a fast deck, and it's there because of Drunith, right? The Reviver of the Hive is just fantastic in this. I don't know if you have ever gotten to experience this, dear audience, but if you haven't yet, turn 1 Elf into turn 2 Drunith, play Paw Patch, feels disgusting. And if they don't kill Drunith on impact, the way it scales your swarm strategy is insane. It really is. I'm not sure I like the Tivar here. I'm more partial to Sentinel at this point because a 3/4 with Vigilance that gives you map tokens to scale Ouroboros fast seems a little bit more relevant than let's pump things again, but for mana this time.
Yeah, we've seen versions of this deck going hard on mana dorks and Druniths like this one, and then others cutting multiples of both, running maybe even only 2 Drunith. So which is better, do you think, in the general metagame?
I mean, I want to go hard on Drunith because that is how you explode, and I expect that card to be a lightning rod for anybody that has a pulse and a brain, right? They know they have to kill it, so running 4 copies of a legend doesn't matter if the legend takes the game over immediately if it doesn't die, and is expected to die on impact. You want to see possibly 2 to 3 copies of this in a game because you expect the first one to die. So I like the version that goes a little bit harder into that, but it's still a new archetype. There's a lot of room to evolve. So it's very possible that we need a more balanced build as we go forward.
I can see that. Blue looks like a really good support color right now for these aggro decks. Floodmaw, Spyglass Siren, and sideboard counter spells. Count me in. We'll see another example here shortly, kicking off our challenger tier with Azorius Aggro.
Oh my god, Azorius Aggro. Here we are. MJ23 has been in the lab with Orzhov Pixies since late September, but last Sunday they flipped the script and decided Cosmo Grand Zenith belonged in Azorius Aggro as well. Shown here is the list that took down Dimir Tempo in the finals of a 46-player challenge. Athena, why are we going Azorius instead of Orzhov?
I think the biggest reason is to play around Warden of the Inner Sky. This card is great. It's seen play in various white aggro shells during its time in Standard, and to play with it, we're playing the 1-mana enablers, right? Spyglass, Siren, and Novice Inspector. This lets you tap the Warden early and often. And to add on to this 3-card duo that's so popular, Halia is a ridiculously good card. Each Siren or Inspector generates 2 out of the 3 triggers that you need to get the card draw, and the fact that you can warp it for 1 is really good here too, because that way you can get 2 mana draw a card, 1 mana draw a card, etc. Who wouldn't want that? Mockingbird's pretty good too, because you get to copy any piece along the way, but it also lets you enable a flying Regal Bunnycorn, and that card ends the game fast when you're pumping this many tokens out.
I'm getting such Monty Python vibes from the Flying Bunny of Death, and I'm here for it. But I look at the sideboard, Athena, and we see 2 Elspeth Stormslayer, and I just got to ask, why do you think that's there?
I mean, Elspeth is really good as a sideboard card in white aggro, I think. If you can actually get up the curve to the mana, which when you're running 6 creatures that draw you cards and 4 that are constantly getting you scry triggers and you're getting maps from Inspector, you're going to hit the point where you have 5 lands pretty consistently through a grindier game. And Elspeth is a good way to sort of hit a different angle, right? Now you have a Planeswalker, it doesn't die to the same removal, it doesn't die to the sweepers, so you can sit there and pump your team over and over, give them flying, let them go overhead. You can just make more tokens every turn, kill big things. Elspeth it's just such a good card.
I mean, you're not wrong. It does grind harder, and the diversification on your threat base is not a small thing to get. And I don't know, the 5 mana really, it scares me, but you're right. We're probably getting to that point against some of these grindier matchups. But speaking of decks that slay, let's talk about the control deck that finally found a path to the top, Jeskai Control.
Kaun took down a 209-player RC Super Qualifier on MTGO this past Sunday, 1 Shiko at a time. Rictus, why are we seeing a sudden resurgence from tap-out control?
I mean, Athena, Cauldron and the rest of the world are focused on beating aggro archetypes right now, especially mono red and Simic Counters, and that means that their usual flex slots for control have dwindled significantly, and this in turn opens a door for a narrow window of time, right? And that's what Jeskai Control is stepping through, is that door, that window of opportunity where they say, okay, if you're going to focus on all these Torch the Towers, Flood Maws, all these cards that are just kind of dead against us, we'll just kill all the early drops and eventually outscale you. And that's what we're doing here, right? Now, I'm a little concerned that we're potentially going into Molten Exhales here, but at the same time, you've got Abrades if you want them, you've got Get Losts, there's plenty of ways to interact with Cauldron still, and it even if they outscale, right? We've got our Day of Judgment split up Ultima. Like this deck is a trap. It's like a constant catch-22 where you force your opponent to overextend into a Wrath, and if they don't, you just pick them off one by one.
Yeah, the red adds a lot of single target removal that otherwise Azorius colors would lack. One thing we've seen pop up in these control lists lately is a single copy of Riverturn Monument in the main deck for the Cauldron matchup, eschewing the Rest in Peace entirely from the board. Do you think this is a better option than Rip against Cauldron?
I do. If they're not aware it's coming, especially. If we don't expect them to pack enough counter magic to take Monument out at some point in the middle of the game as they're out grinding you, and this has been the issue, right, is that Cauldron against Control, Cauldron can outdraw you. It'll draw 40 cards to your 20, right? But if they're going to draw 40 cards and they're going to dump everything to the graveyard, then Riverturn Monument is a 6-mana end game spell. Just immediately, we're done, we win. So if they're not, holding a nulls back, if they're not playing around it, I think it's really spicy tech until people see it coming. And so far, I don't know that many people are going to see it coming for Baltimore because not that many people have playtested against that build of Jeskai Control. So I like it for this weekend specifically.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think we're going to see a little bit less tuned lists going into this, like you said, right? When you're playing Control, Jeskai is the limit. I know you hated that pun, but you'll have to deal with it a bit longer as you get to see Dimir Tempo that this next deck can bring.
I love the puns. Saibo kept Dimir in the Challenger tier with a top 8 performance at Sunday's 209-player MTGO RC Super Qualifier. Athena, how is this build hedged for the meta?
Well, Rictus, for the first time in a long time, I can well and truly call this Dimir midrange. I've always had a problem with that name for this deck, but this is an actual midrange deck. We've gone far more of a mid-range plan with these Quantum Riddlers and Elegy Acolytes to draw more cards, and you rely a lot less on the Kaido, which only has 2 copies, because you have to constantly board this card out, right? This card's bad into Simic Counters, it's bad into Mono Red, it's okay into Cauldron. If you're on the play, it's good, but if you're on the draw, it's really bad, right? So you're constantly boarding out Kaido. We go more higher up the curve, Quantum Riddlers, Elegy Acolytes, etc. Bitter Triumph is the removal spell we're using at 2 mana. I think this makes a lot of sense. Other options are just a little too conditional. You can kill some creatures and not others in a lot of matchups. And the discard, you can kind of play into your extra draw from Quantum Riddlers with it too, right? Very diversified sideboard. Love to see a bunch of 1-ofs. It makes you have a lot of variety of options for different matchups, especially as you're heading into a big event like this, and you can start to tune each individual board plan differently for each list that you see.
So looking at this 0 Point Ballad, it's a sideboard card in this list. You think it's going to become a sideboard staple for Dimir at this point?
It's going to have to. It's going to have to. I mean, the card's pretty good, right? It's almost like a black Pyroclasm in a way. It's very similar to Toxic Deluge in Modern, where you're paying life and mana at the same time instead. But I mean, this card's going to be good for taking out a bunch of X1s and X2s, right? 3 mana, kill all your opponent's X2s is pretty good. And when you have decks like Simic Counters running around or Azorius Aggro, you're going to need cards like that if you're playing Dimir, because deck has always struggled with go wide aggro.
Yeah, it might be time to break out the sweepers again, and 0 Point Ballad is pretty damn good for that right now. With that, though, we finish our tiers. We move on to my favorite section every week, Brewer's Corner. Athena, show us what you got cooking with Naya Yuna.
Credit goes to Eric Gray, who took first place in SCG Con Houston's Super Sunday RCQ with a 5-0-1 record. Love seeing a good Yuna deck. And this one's a bit more resilient than you'd think, right? The Naya Yuna deck, as opposed to the other colors, focuses much less on the pure Reanimator plan, and they're playing more of a proper mid-range strategy. A lot of the curve is in the 2 and 3 drop section. The fear of missing out and Summon Fenrir in particular help bolster your early game turns with proper board pieces, right? So it lets you fight on kind of a different axis when the matchup calls for it. The single copy of Devout Decree is pretty nice here, I think. It's a good nod to all the red players, right? The top 8 of that event had 4 Cauldron and 2 mono red players, so I imagine the Devout Decree was pretty good for that, right? Sideboard features all sorts of good things, but I want to highlight Beyond the Quiet as an Exile Sweeper in particular, because an Exile Sweeper is great against Cauldron. It's also really good into Sultai Bringer, which both of those were represented in the top 8 here.
I mean, 1 Devout Decree in the main, 2 more in the sideboard. This was somebody, like, who hurt you? It had to be a mono red player. Like, oh my god, that's so much hate main board for that. But, you know, sometimes it's warranted, and clearly based on the top 8, they knew exactly what they were expecting to play against. Fantastic. Now, good things happen when you play Rampinator, but sometimes the best things explode out of innocent-looking setups, so let's get mobilized with Boros. Credit to Adair David, took down an RCQ in the Philippines over mono green aggro with this little number. Now, I love this. I tried different builds of this. I could never find the right one. This feels like they've actually taken it and tuned it a little bit more. But ultimately what we're doing here is doing a little swarm strategy that just goes hard with Arabella, with Shocking Sharpshooter. Like, you are just creating all of these creatures that are going to die very quickly and at the same time hit for impact damage, right? Like, this is kind of an Impact Tremors Goblin Bombardment vibe to it. And I love that because it allows us to run things like Day of Judgment at the top end and not really care. And I've wanted Arabella to have a home for so long. And when you put it with Dalkovan Packveets, yeah, that just pops off. Let's also note that, like, for Voice of Victory, good luck playing counter spells into this deck. It's not going to go well for you. They're going to go under you, and then every single threat has to be dealt with individually or just scales them out. So I love it. I love where this is going. I doubt it's good enough with Vivi around, but like post Vivi, I'm going to take another look at this list.
Yeah, Mobilize is definitely a slept-on mechanic, and it kind of shows when decks like this can really like make use of it properly, right? For now, let's take a look at what Rictus and I have been testing with the team for Baltimore. After all, testing with a team is the best way to stay ahead of the curve. So, from last week, I apologize. I had talked a bit about Simic Counters, and I had mentioned that 4 talents was incorrect. I was wrong. 4 talents is right. You absolutely want all of them, right? It's a way to scale your threats without the Ouroboros and lets you play a grindier game plan. Personally, I'm on Sentinels instead of Tyvar. This really helps with the red matchup in particular. 4 toughness and vigilance is very impactful for getting on the board and staying there. Overall, this deck feels a lot like Boros Convoke does, in that you have very explosive turn 2s that require very specific answers from the format in these very cheap sweepers, and most won't have them pre-board. Almost no one has Fire Magics or 0-point ballads in the pre-board. So if you can get a Llanowar Elf into Drunith Genemorph Pollinator or vice versa, the game kind of ends. And you have the chance of boarding out of that plan when they do bring those in, right? Having cards in the sideboard like Quantum Riddler, more Sirocs, Tidebinders, really help you play more of the mid-range plan to kind of make the Fire Magics and Pyroclasms of the world a little worse against you.
That's fair. I mean, I love what we're doing with this list in particular. I don't know. It's hard to say how good this is going to be if people start running in all the sweepers, but in the meantime, if they're not there yet, take advantage. This is a great weekend for Simic Counters. It really will be. Now, Simic might be juicing with some roids, but when in doubt, just burn them out. Let's talk about my dark horse for Spotlight Baltimore, Boros Burn. First and foremost, sideboard guide. It's in Coffee and Grinders. Have at it. Have fun. I've been working on that all week long with the guild mages. It's been a good time. The stinger back in the main. I cut down on the Hellkites. I did not like Hellkite into Cauldron. Didn't like it that much into Red. Didn't like it that much into Simic Counters. It's really there mostly for Dimir at this point, and it's okay against Control. But Stingerback Terror is such a hedge for the mirror, especially when you get to do Sheltered by Ghosts. And we did get to live the dream in testing with a Sheltered by Ghosts into a double strike Boros Charm to swing for 16 points of lifelink. And that felt pretty damning. I'm not going to lie, that felt pretty damning. This build, though, in particular, this is here to farm Cauldron. It's here to farm Mono Red. We are a turn faster than the average Cauldron draw, and we have life gain for the Red Mirror, so we are going to win that unless they get the God draws with Nemesis. Outside of that, Magebane, finally a proper home. I've been waiting for a version of Red that embraces Burn because that's where Magebane gets to shine. We have that here. And last but not least, this is the build that also gets to let Slickshot Show Off shine because you play so much Burn. You know, other builds of Red, they're a little more creature heavy, so Show Off's a little bit riskier, and this is finally the build that says, no, we can just eschew the upper end of the curve, go even further down the curve, essentially, with Slickshot Show Off, and accelerate yet another turn. So I love that against decks that are not packing removal.
Yeah, the show off in particular was that was a hard hitter. I played against G Funky, who was testing the stack, and I was testing the Simic Counters list. I was like, yeah, I've got like a really big board, and it just unplot Slick Shot, cast 3 spells, attack me, and I'm dead. I'm like, oh, well, there goes that game.
It'll just do that sometimes. Yeah, it's wild how explosive that card is.
Oh. Well, Rebels, another week, another battlefield. Stay tuned for next week when we'll give our report on Spotlight Baltimore and other standard event results. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell to get all your weekly meta updates.
And if you made it this far, get ready for some spicy outtakes during the credits. Shout out to Guild Mages G Funky and Hunter as they make the trek to Baltimore to battle it out for their shot at the Pro Tour. We're rooting for you, boys.
Thanks for watching, Rebels. Until next time, untap, upkeep, resist.
And we got it. I'm still leaving it on record. So, Cozy, the next part, whatever we talk about, just cut out like anything.
Dumb bitch. No.
I really hope that gets inserted, just dumb bit, but like not after what Lily said, just like right after I say something stupid, and Cozy just starts implementing "dumb bitch" as the fucking like sound clip over and over again.
Dumb bitch.
God, I'm still not being like I just can't get over how this moisturizer looks like I oiled up my fucking face for this.
Your face usually looks like an ass, but now it looks like a porn star ass, where it's like oiled up before shooting.
Yeah, it looks like somebody just got done sitting on it, and it's not the best look, and I'm realizing that.
Dumb bitch.
Let Lily know she sneezes like Falco Punch out of Super Smash Brothers.
Says you sneeze like Falcon punches.